Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. Well, here we are again, talking about some records, right? It's kind of a weird time to talk about records now. There's so much shit going on in the world. It's so, like, seriously fucked up. It can be a little hard to focus on, like, the fun shit, you know what I mean? But, like, that's the point of this channel. We're here to all be friends and enjoy some records and maybe talk some shit, but, you know, all with the best of intentions. The other thing we're not going to be talking about here is fucking AI Beatles shit, you know? I mean, talk about, like, fucking, like, late boomer malaise. Fucking, someone digs out a fucking tape and then, like, reconstructs it with some AI shit and, like, people are freaking out about it on their streams and shit. Man, none of that horse shit here. You know, there's enough. There's so many bands, dude. We don't have to fucking pick at the corpses of these fucking... you know, these dead heroes of a previous generation. It's just fucking lame, you know, so. This one's gonna be all over the place, I can already tell. So, talking about a bunch of French records recently, actually, and there was someone who left me a comment to the effect that, so is the next video gonna be a follow-up for the Sydney Records catalog, because I talked about, Devil's Records in the last one. And I don't really know very much about either of these labels from a historical standpoint. Hey, kid just came in. Did you have a good time, my friend?
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
We did so much drugs.
So, Sydney is sort of the label where Devil's bands went to die, is kind of my impression. You know, it's like Killers put out a record on Devils and Steel Angel and ADX, and I think there were even one or two others who, and then they put follow-up records out on Sydney. Are you going to be up for a few minutes? Okay, I'll come check on you. They put follow-up records out on Sydney that I've never heard anything bad about, but I haven't really sought them all out because the Sydney records tend to be even harder to find than the Devil's records. And I don't know, man. I'm more inclined to go out of my way for a debut than for a third record, you know? It's just kind of the way it is. I mean, if it's a really good record or a favorite band, sure. But I don't know, those just kind of haven't come around. So anyway, the only Sydney records I've really sought out were ones by bands I didn't already have shit by, right? Exactly what we're talking about here. If it's a choice, that's one thing about this fucking channel. If I have a choice between checking out another record by a band I already like, or a new record to me by a band I don't already know, I'm gonna go for the new fucking band every single time, you know? Sometimes my own detriment, too, frankly, but, you know, that's how you learn. So anyway, I have two, and this is one of them. It's the fucking Dum Dum Bullet record, which I think is fantastic. It's really kind of gritty, kind of, you know, knuckle draggy. Maybe a little bikerish. I mean, it kind of sounds like this guy, right? And normally I hate it when the music cuts out like this. But when they have an accent like that, I'm all in. It's all fucking good, right? Yeah, I was talking about that Vulcan record last time, and like, I mean, I don't know, I like that record just fine, but just never grabbed me. And this one's kind of similar in spirit, but this one I just fucking love, you know? Or Maracage I love too. I think I talked about that one last time as well. Anyway, the other one here that I have here, maybe I should throw this one on for a minute too, but this is the Titan record. They actually made another record too. I just have this first one. And this one's more sort of straight ahead metal. I mean, not that this isn't metal, right? This is total metal. This one's a little bit more sort of, I guess it would have been modern metal in, you know, 86, but, you know, dude, this sounds a little old fashioned, right? I mean, I'm just sort of saying this shit like you know what I'm talking about. This thing has a real... oh, fuck, I'll just show the other one on for a minute, make it easier. But this one has a real sort of, you know, straight-ahead rock and roll kind of vibe, you know what I mean? That really sort of punky thing, you know what I mean? You compare it with the new wave British heavy metal shit. You can compare it with Motorhead. You can compare it with Motorhead knockoffs if you want to sound like you really know what you're talking about, you know, invoke Vulcan or something like that when you're... talking about. I'm just to call myself out a little bit here. It's a really good record though, man. I mean, again, I don't really know anything about Titan. They did put out one other record, which I don't have and have never heard. There's the Sydney label. So you know what we're talking about here? Just make sure there's a fucking intro on this. Yeah, there is. The first song is called G.I.'s Heritage. That probably seemed poignant when they were high and writing it, you know. I just bumped it ahead for a minute. But yeah, and then I've sort of been oscillating back and forth, sort of between kicks, kind of pulling some different shit out, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through here. It's the Square record and shit that I showed last time. But, you know, I pulled this out, too, because I really felt like hearing some of that organ shit. You know? I love this fucking record, man. So, yeah, Attila. It's on Epic. I kind of wish I had a better copy. This is a little bit rough. But I'll tell you something. If you ever go seek this out, there's a reissue sometime in the 80s on some kind of like backtrack. But they put this, I don't remember what the label was called, but it had like this yellow logo here that was kind of ugly, and it was on the back too. They really kind of promoted themselves. And they did a really shitty mastering job. Like, one of the sides would kept cutting out and shit, and I just thought it was recorded badly until I got an original. So I don't know how much these things are going for these days. Probably not a fuckload, because, you know, by the standards of a Rare record, they kind of made a lot of these. So, you know, the Billy Joel fans might want it, but, you know, whatever. It's a fucking great record, man. Like, I mean, if you want to hear an organ sounding like Led Zeppelin, this is your best record. This is the best record there is, you know what I mean? It's really heavy. It's just a duo. It's just organ and drums, but this doesn't sound like, you know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer or some shit like that. It's fucking balls out hard rock, and yeah, it's fucking fantastic, man. I love it, you know. Especially you get to like amplifier fire and shit. It gets all sort of epic and intense. It's on a big label, so I'm a little bit skittish about sampling it, but it's cool. I'll be honest though, man. I pulled this one out too. You see what I mean about Titan, though? It's not quite thrash, but it's kind of heading in that direction a little bit more, like sort of what you'd expect on the way towards, you know, 1986. Which means this Dum Dum Bullet was probably kind of behind the times. I don't remember when this one came out. Yeah, this one's 86 as well. So this was a little bit almost retro by 86. But you know something, man? That's not a complaint. That's just an observation. Because Dum Dum Bullet fucking rules. But so does Titan, man. But yeah, what else have I been listening to? And I wasn't in the, Man, we're really going to be going downhill from here. I'm just fucking warning you right now. I'll show some 45s in a little bit, so, because I've been listening to a lot of 45s, and I'll show some good ones again, but, like, it's only going to get worse from here until then. Fucking Close to the Edge by Yes. This is probably my favorite Yes record. At least when I sort of went on my little Yes kick, when I sort of did a 180 from hating them all my life to deciding I liked them a lot. Maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. This is kind of the one that I latched on to the most. Pretty sure I actually bought this at Papa Jazz in Columbia, South Carolina. I know some of y'all shop there when you're anywhere near Columbia. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the hell I'm going to tell you about Yes, you know? I don't really have anything new to say about these guys, except that when I listen to Yes, what I really enjoy about them is the kind of rock and roll. Like, I've heard so much talk about Yes being like a prog band and like this sort of important prog band and progressive this and musicianship that and all that sort of thing, that like by the time I actually started listening to Yes and like paying attention, I was a little bit surprised by how much they actually still sounded like a rock and roll band, you know what I mean? And, you know, this does not sound like Chuck Berry. It doesn't sound like Dum Dum Bullet, you know? If prog rock is too pretentious for you, you know what I mean? If you listen to, I mean, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is kind of a piece of shit anyway, but if you listen to Nursery Crime and you go, yeah, this is a little bit up itself for me, then you're really going to hate Yes. But it's not all just like noodly bullshit all the way through either. You know what I mean? There are structures, there are songs here, and when you're in the right mood, it's kind of a fun record to listen to, man. I'm actually, it's funny because like I'm saying this right now, I am totally not in the mood. I would probably hate this record right now because I've listened to dumber shit like like Attila. Although here's the thing, I pulled out the Attila because I want to hear the organs, and I kind of needed some more, so I reached for the Yes. So kind of shoot myself in the foot a little bit here. I kind of went a little Budgie kick too. Sort of inspired by a recent video of Alan's over at Let's Talk Metal. Because he was saying that he never appreciated this Budgie record. It's funny, I usually either like change the things or take off the stickers, but that one just amuses me for some reason. This might actually be my favorite Budgie record. I would have to think about that because it's really close. I really love the first 5. And I really like Power Supply a lot. And that's pretty much it for Budgie. I really like the EP too, If Swallowed Do Not Induce Vomiting. But that's almost like an extra off of Power Supply, you know? But I feel like this one goes all sorts of different places, but it stays focused. You know what I mean? It goes and like does all this interesting shit. And I'm not so much talking about the like the little sort of musical interludes. Like Budgie tends to they'll have a rocker or two, and then like they'll have like a really short like acoustic song in the middle. It's sort of like a bridge, you know what I mean? Like almost like, you know, Embryo or something like that by a Black Sabbath, but more sort of fleshed out into a full song, and generally acoustic too. And then they'll go back into another rocker after that, you know? So they definitely do that on this one too. But the songs have a lot of parts too. I actually suspect this was Cliff Burton's favorite Budgie record too, by the way. Just sort of listening to some of the songs and, you know, some similar shit you hear in some early Metallica. But if I go too far down that path, I'll be psychologizing. Suffice to say, I think this is a really good record, man. I almost feel like this one does the best job of staying rooted in that sort of power trio-ness of the band, even if they do different things. But you know, I'm not. But that's not the shit on any of these other ones, man. And I'll tell you, they're all right here, pretty much. Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. Played that one a few times. In for the Kill is the first one I ever got, so there's a special place in my heart for this one, anyway. You know. And the first one's here too. Now here's the other thing about Budgie though. I love Budgie, and I hope that's obvious, okay? But I kind of feel like they're a little bit overrated. Like, they got that Metallica boost, and like because of that everyone came around. It was like with the mighty Diamond Head, right? Where everyone, you know, all the sort of fans who are a little bit younger came around and like started bowing down before Budgie. Budgie's great, okay? But there were kind of a lot of bands that were, you know, great in the same sort of way. And Budgie made more really good records than a lot of them. And they deserve credit for that too, you know? But like, I don't know, man. You compare a record like this to, I mean, I always think of the German shit, you know what I mean? Like Necronomicon or Drosselbart or, I don't know, man. Lava might be a little bit lame, but I really like that album, Tears Are Going Home, and maybe I should pull it out because I kind of haven't played it in a long time, and now I'm thinking about it. You know, again, maybe it's not fair to like compare a band that made 5 great records in a certain style to bands that made 1 or 2 records in a certain style, but I sort of feel like people like, I feel like there's a tendency, or there's a temptation at the very least, to sort of, if you're new, to dig into your Sabbath and your Zeppelin, and then you get into your Deep Purple and your Uriah Heep, and then the next step is like Budgie, and then people kind of, maybe not stop there, but stop a little sooner than they should before digging down a little bit. So Budgie's awesome. I totally recommend these records. I love them. But don't stop with Budgie. There's a lot more really good shit out there too. From the same era that's just as heavy or heavier, and good songwriters too. Alright, so this one's for Steve Fever, man, because I was watching Grown Man Record Night a couple weeks ago, and Steve was talking about how he had a show. and a show coming up, and they were going to do some songs. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to do a Styx song, and then I was like, what fucking song? Boat on the River? And I was kind of being a smart ass, you know, because back in the 80s, at least where I was living when I was in Germany, there was one song that every band would always fucking cover, and that was Lady in Black by Uriah Heep. But there was one other one that almost every band covered, and that was fucking Boat on the River. So I was kind of being a smart ass with that, but then I like thought about it, and I was like, man, I kind of really want to hear that song now. I ended up fucking grabbing this. And you know something? I grabbed this, and a couple other bad ones too. Like the fucking Foreigner record. And I kind of made a little decision because I think it's time to for me to actually create a section for the bad records, which maybe I'll show when it's fleshed out. It's only about this big right now. But it's like, you know, if you collect records, you have your baloney stack, right? You know, where the Sesame Street records and shit like that go. And historically, that's where I've stuck my bad records too, like Journey records and shit like that find their way in your collection, you know? That kind of shit's in the baloney stack. But like, especially since I kind of put my finger on what this whole sort of bad music kick is that I've been in and out of a little bit for the last couple months. You know, like when I came back and was fucking hyping Foghat a month ago or whatever and shit like that. I mean, this is all bad shit. Bad Company is kind of shitty band, you know, but... At least, you know, if that whole sort of, you know, cynicism of, like, classic rock radio has kind of gotten to you, then you probably hate Bad Company, you know? I kind of hate Bad Company. But every once in a while it really scratches the itch, but, like, it's in this weird place because there's certain kinds of bad that I'm, like, totally into, like that, but then, like, Meatloaf is, like, on the other side of that line. Like, I do not want to fucking hear Bad Out of Hell ever again, you know? And it's sort of like that, and I put my finger on it. What I've actually kind of been in the mood for, I've been wanting to hear shitty records, is dive bar jukebox music, you know? So I kind of don't mind having a few of those around, you know? And that's where, you know, I've kind of been riding this horse a little bit lately, man, but I don't know where it's written that you have to like all your records. You know, I have some records, I have a lot of great records, okay? I have a lot of records that suck. I have a lot of records that suck that I really love anyway, and then I have a lot of records that suck and I kind of hate them, but sometimes they scratch the itch anyway, you know? And that's the thing, man. It's like, if you only ever listen to the best stuff, then you probably have about 10 records in your collection, right? And let's be honest. I mean, if you've been collecting longer, maybe you have 100 records in your collection, okay? But if you've been collecting as long as I have, 100 records isn't a lot. And that's not a flex. That's just like saying, I mean, I've been collecting records for 35 years, so 100 records is what, 3 records a year? I mean, that's pretty fucking lame. I wouldn't even call myself a record collector if that was my track record. I mean, seriously, that just means like you like having a few records in the house to listen to. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know, if you're like into this shit and it's like your thing, you're going to end up with more than that, right? So that means just by default that not all of your records are going to be the best stuff, right? It's not going to be the fucking best records all the time. It's going to be a mixed bag. I listen to a lot of 45s too, new wave British heavy metal shit. So I'm going to fire up a couple of these while we're going through, because why the hell not? They're fucking fantastic and fun to listen to. And I told you I'd play something better if you hung around a little bit. Actually, I said I'd talk about something better. I'm still talking about bullshit right now, so maybe I lied. Here, Persian Risk. It's really good. As far as I know, they made this other single on Neat. And they had like one song on a comp. 50,000 Stallions actually on this one. It's All Hell Let Loose comp. Which is a really good package, actually. Has all the names you know and love, but not necessarily the most obvious songs by them. You know, like, you probably have enough compilations already that have Cheetah by White Spirit on them, right? That's on fucking everything, or at least it was for a while. Although on this one, you get Wise Spirit. You see that typo? I love shit like that. It also has some other shit on it, like Crucifixion, doing the Fox, with a version that's different from the single version, too. So, anyway, it's a great comp. It's totally worth having. But we're talking about bad records, right? The point is just that if you only listen to shit you love all the time, you're never going to learn anything new. You know, and yeah, my mind is kind of made up when it comes to some of these bands. Like AOR is kind of relegated. You know, Chromie D's protestations notwithstanding, although I always think of him when I'm buying a fucking record like this. But you know, I probably never make a video without saying, here's a record I used to hate that now I've come around and love, you know? And I'm not really saying that I'm going to come around and like start standing for Bad Company or Foghat, like seriously. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy listening to those bands sometimes too, you know? In fact, I almost feel like I enjoy those bands more because I've heard so much talk about the same couple bands for so long. Like, maybe I've been hanging out on Rachel's stream too much, man, but you hear enough about the Beatles, and like, I kind of gone from like being sick of the Beatles to sort of not hearing them for a while and being sort of genuinely interested. Like when I was around 30, I bought the records and like listened to them on my own and like really enjoyed them for a while, you know? And then I kind of got tired of them, but filed them away and whatever. And like now I'm back at the point where I just fucking hate the Beatles and really never want to hear about them ever again. And that's not the Beatles. That's the constant like talk, you know. But that's the point. Is it just gets fucking lame. You know what I mean? So in a way, a record like this that no one is going to seriously champion as like a fucking masterwork. At least not in any of the circles I run in. I mean, I know there are AOR fans out there, you know. But there's something, there's just something kind of liberating in the way you're saying, yes, this is a fucking, like, at best, a second-rate record. Let's call it a third or fourth-rate record, right? And that's what it is, proudly. You know what I mean? It's about as good as Lou Gramm looks in that picture. Or just say fucking dorky as hell. And, like, kind of embarrassing, you know? And that's just what it is. And that's fine. You know why? Because not everyone's the fucking Beatles. And, like, I guess I don't resent Foreigner in the same way, you know? Because even though they're kind of bullshit, and there are things about them to be sort of offended by, like how sort of cynical some of the hooks are and how corporate the production is and that kind of shit. But it just sort of is what it is, man, you know? And if it's kind of a turd, well, you know something, man? If there's a little bit of corn in that fucking turd, then that's just fine, you know? Now, speaking of new wave British heavy metal stuff, NWOBHM. This might be the ultimate creeper record in my collection because it's way too long for starters. There's 16 songs on this, and that's more songs, in case you're wondering, than you can fit on one piece of vinyl effectively, unless they're like, you know, 30-second songs or something like that. So there's nothing about this record to dislike, you know? But a lot of it can kind of just sort of blur together, you know? Especially because it's all in a similar style. And then they even do shit like putting Street Fighter and State Trooper, right? Or Stormtrooper and Street Fighter right next to each other. And it's like, man, like, putting those names right next to each other is only going to serve to make the whole thing seem even more samey than it already is, you know? But it's like the more I play this record over the years, the more it sort of, the more it just sort of creeps up on me, man. The more like little sort of earworms hang in my head, and I sort of notice a song that sort of, you know, just went by in the blur that I sort of overlooked, and the more I like the record, man. So yeah, New Electric Warriors, I think, is a little bit dicey as a comp to sort of recommend. You know what I mean? If you're new to this stuff, get Heavy Metal Heroes. get Lead Weight. Definitely get Rock Snacks if you can find it. But this one, I mean, I'll be honest, it came on my radar because there was one song off this thing that made it to that Lars comp, you know? But the rest of this was kind of a blur. But like with time and repeated listening and a certain amount of dedication to the genre, if I'm honest, you'll come around on it. What a fucking dumb cover too, man. Jesus, dude. I mean, the back looks like shit. Everything about this record looks like crap. But it's a really cool record, man. And there are a lot of good songs on this. And you know something? As many times I've played this record, I probably haven't even discovered all the great songs on this thing yet because of that sort of blur thing, you know what I mean? It just sort of takes a while for this record to reveal itself to you, you know? That's what's up right now. Radium. Another great one, actually, too. I shouldn't gloss over it. I was thinking about doing a little feature on the Neat singles. But it's funny because I've had those for a long time, so those kind of feel like the common ones. But if anyone's interested, man, go ahead and say something, because I had most of the early Neat 45s, the metal ones, you know. What else do we have to talk about here? I don't know, I enjoy the philosophical shit, you know. That's kind of where we always end up going here. It's funny, I'm like looking at this thing wanting to like call out specific songs to sort of recommend, but like I almost feel like that misses the point, you know? Like Running by Turbo, the very first song, is kind of a mediocre song. In a way, it starts the record off right as far as setting your expectations. But like the Street Fighter song is really good. It just took me a few listens to really get it, you know? Battle Torn Heroes by Buffalo is great. Well, I'm just reading this shit off now, so we can move on, I suppose. Yeah, and that's probably about it, man. I guess I could show a couple more 45s and sort of round this out. But it's been a weird time, man. I've sort of been reaching for some shit and like not other shit. And doing shit like this where I pulled out this record. Actually, because someone left a comment on an old video with regard to this. And I was like, oh, I should pull that out again, you know. But now it's sitting here because I haven't actually felt like playing it, you know. So, I don't know, man. What are you going to do? Here's what we're going to round it out with. I don't know if I've talked about this one before. This is the Speed 45. Yeah, there was like a... It's not even a sleeve. It's like a piece of paper that had some really bad pictures on it that came with it originally. You can find that. It's worth a ton of money, but you know, I'm willing to compromise there to get the thing so I can actually like listen to it and enjoy it rather than wait until I find the most rare version possible. It doesn't mean I won't grab the rare one if I come across it, but I love this record though, man. It's just like so rock and roll and so straight ahead. It isn't like you can tell it's Bruce singing, Bruce Dickinson, but it isn't like that Iron Maiden sound. It's just kind of cool to hear him in different contexts. That isn't the Samson context either, you know? It almost sounds like, it almost sounds like a punk song. I'm trying to think of a specific touch point. I almost said Richard Hell, but it really doesn't sound like Richard Hell at all. But there's something about the way it's bouncy like that that makes me think of like that sort of pogo-y shit, you know? Such a fun record, man. Yeah, that's about all I've got today. Not really a whole shit ton of news, but thanks for watching. I hope it was a little bit of respite, and it's so good. All right, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it.